For my personal book and the final presentation, I read Annapurna, A Woman's Place by Arlene Blum. In the book, Arlene accounts her journey as the team leader of the first American and the first woman's ascent of Annapurna, one of the world's highest peaks. Arlene wanted to create an all-female expedition because women were frequently barred from joining men on other climbing expeditions, and they were treated poorly if they were even allowed to join. Several members of the expedition accounted throughout the book that they were literally barred from climbing above a certain height by the male leaders of past expeditions. The expedition started by applying for a permit from the Nepalese government to climb Annapurna in the fall of 1978, and by searching for team members. Arlene eventually created a team consisting of 13 women, including 2 young female filmmakers, who are going to make a documentary for ABC about the expedition. The team prepped in Berkeley, where they trained for several hours a day, sold t-shirts that said, "A woman's place is on top," to fund their expedition, and gather all the gear and food needed for the climb. Once everything was ready, the expedition team flew from SFO to Kathmandu, where they acclimated to the altitude, prepped the supplies and food for the trek, along with meeting the Sherpas who would be assisting them on the expedition. Once all the supplies was ready, the team took a bus to Pokhara, where they hired 200 porters to help carry supplies the 10 days to base camp. The plan was to hike to base camp during the monsoon season, so they were constantly rained on and threatened by leeches. Along the way, they struggled with having enough food for everyone, enough money to pay for the food, and several porters abandoning them during the hike. Once at base camp, they meticulously climbed in groups to create the different camps along the mountain, where they could acclimate and store supplies in order to reach the summit of Annapurna. This took several weeks. As the leader, Arlene had to deal with Sherpas going on strike, disagreements between team members, and the constant threat of avalanches off the mountain. Several times during the climb, snowstorms forced them to stop climbing and huddle in their tents for days. Eventually, they were able to establish Camp 5, the last camp before the summit. Arlene then had to decide who would get the opportunity to be on the first summit team, and who would be on the second summit team in case the first failed. It was determined that team members Vera K and Irene, along with Sherpas Mingla and Shawang, would have the first attempt at the summit, and Vera W and Allison would have the second attempt of the summit. The first team made it to the summit on the first try, so the second team decided to climb one of Annapurna's other peaks. But sadly, as they were climbing up from Camp 4 to Camp 5, they slipped off a ledge and fell. Their bodies were discovered several days later by Sherpas, who were sent to go look for them when they didn't radio in from Camp 5. The team was forced to leave their bodies on the mountain and carved their names into a memorial for all the hikers who died attempting Annapurna. On a happy note, the surviving climbers all went on to attempt further climbs all over the world, and one of the team members, Annie, ended up marrying Yeshi, the expedition's cook. This book connects to both Wild and The Long Walk. In Wild, Cheryl has to contend with the struggles of being a female outdoors person, with people not believing she could make it, while the woman of Annapurna, A Woman's Place, had to deal with people constantly not believing in them. In The Long Walk, the escapees journeyed through the same mountains the women were climbing in, and faced many of the same difficulties the terrain provided. A further connection is how Allison and Vera W. died, slipping off a ledge, much like one of the characters in The Long Walk. The book also connects to our class expeditions. The food prep for the kayaking trip was similar to the prep that the climbing expedition team had to do for their journey. The ropes course also connects because we had to work as a team to accomplish our task, like the woman from the expedition. My definition for adventure is going out and experiencing something new. For my future plans for adventure, I am going to study abroad next year in the UK, so essentially next year will be one big adventure for me, as I meet new people and experience new things that I could never experience here in San Francisco.